We are exploring many of the nooks and crannies of geometric algebra. We defined a new kind of multiplication, the geometric product. It operates on vectors and other geometric objects called multivectors, so that we can perform geometric operations by simply doing algebraic calculations. Reducing geometry to algebra is one of the key strengths of the geometric product. In the previous video, we focused on the wedge product. We used it to construct small segments of planes, volumes, and higher dimensional linear subspaces. We will calculate the size of such a wedge product, and we will get a very familiar looking formula that you might recognize from linear algebra. It's the determinant. We find out why this happens, how the determinant can be defined in geometric algebra, and how the wedge product can help us solve systems of linear equations. Let me take you back to the series on linear algebra. We studied the effect of a linear transformation on a grid of vectors in the plane. Then we drew a little unit square, and we transformed it into something else, typically some kind of parallelogram. The unit square has an area of 1, and the final parallelogram may have a different area. That area is called the determinant of the linear transformation. So it's basically the factor by which all areas get stretched. Note that it has a sign. If the determinant is negative, this means that the transformation flips the plane over on its other side. So we managed to learn a lot about linear transformations by letting them act on a small unit square. But wait a minute, we now have a very precise way of defining the unit square. It's not just a geometric object anymore, it's an algebraic expression that we can calculate with. We write it like this, as the wedge product between the two basis vectors e1 and e2. This produces a bivector, which is exactly the little piece of the plane that we need. Its size is 1, and even though I draw it as a square, its shape doesn't really matter. Any shape of unit size gets rescaled by the same factor, and that factor is all we are interested in. We now apply our linear transformation f directly to the unit bivector e1 wedge e2. Because the wedge product is linear, we can distribute the sum over it. And remember, this is no longer just a nice visualization, but an actual algebraic calculation that we can carry out. The formula tells us that we have to transform each of the basis vectors and then wedge the two transformed vectors together. This is incredibly cool. What we have here is a formula that literally produces the resulting parallelogram. It's a new bivector. We can now write the transformed vectors in terms of their coordinates. Remember from the series on linear algebra that the transformed vectors are the columns of the matrix. You know, the matrix that we use to perform the transformation. Let's continue our calculation. We can distribute one sum over the other. This is allowed because, once again, the wedge product is linear. Two of the resulting terms contain a flat wedge of a vector with itself. So these two terms are 0, and we throw them out of our expression. And now comes a very simple but profound little step. We swap the order of these two basis vectors, but that introduces a minus sign. The formula for the determinant appears as if by magic. In linear algebra, we followed an informal process for calculating the determinant. We placed the transformed basis vectors in the columns of a matrix. And then we calculated a weird kind of formula where the elements of the matrix are multiplied in pairs, and then sometimes added, sometimes subtracted, and especially for larger matrices it was never entirely clear which products of elements needed a minus sign and which ones didn't. But now, this informal process becomes a simple algebraic calculation. Every step has been formalized, and all these steps are really simple because they all follow from the same simple rules that we've used so many times. Just think about how powerful and versatile this is. The same rules that gave us complex numbers now give us the determinant. Specifically, the formula for determinants follows from the anti-commutativity of the wedge product. If you have ever wondered where all those minus signs in determinant formulas are coming from, now you know. They are the leftovers of swapping all the basis vectors back into the same order. To me, it's just lovely that geometry can be turned into algebra, and that so much of the weirdness and arbitrariness gets explained and unified. This is truly a testament to the power of geometric algebra and the wedge product. The norm of a vector is its length. The norm of a bivector is its area. In general, the norm of any blade of grade K is its K volume. We have now established that those norms, all of those lengths and areas and hypervolume measurements, are actually determinants. Well, that's only part of the story. Another important detail is the sign of the determinant. Not only does the determinant give you the absolute value of the size of the blade, it also tells you in which direction the blade is oriented. Some two-dimensional blades orient in a counterclockwise direction, which is typically taken as the positive orientation for angles. Those blades will give you positive determinants. When you swap the order of the two vectors that make up the blade, its orientation flips around. It becomes clockwise. Those blades will give you a negative determinant. In 3 dimensions, the sign of the determinant relates to the left versus right-handedness of the parallelepiped. Instead of holding your right hand in front of you and bending your fingers and desperately trying to remember which way your thumb should point, you can now just perform the calculations. They will automatically give you the correct sign because the wedge product is anti-symmetric. It always does the right thing. You never have to worry about it anymore. But even that is not the full story. You see, a bivector has a size and an orientation, but it also knows the plane in which it lives. This bivector and this one have exactly the same determinant, but they live in different planes, so they are not equal to each other. Only their signed magnitudes are equal. The determinant is merely the signed magnitude. The blade itself contains additional information. It tells you which plane it lives in. Geometric algebra starts from linear algebra but then extends it, adding extra information. It completes linear algebra, making it more flexible and powerful. In the previous video, we developed a very simple linear independence test. A bunch of vectors are linearly independent if their wedge product is non-zero. Let's work that out in more detail for the two-dimensional case. Write two vectors as linear combinations of the basis, and wedge them together. Distribute as always, and swap the order of these two basis vectors at the cost of introducing a minus sign. The resulting formula is, once again, a determinant. Now think about how you would check the linear dependence of our two vectors in linear algebra without using the wedge product. What you would probably do is put the two vectors in the columns of a matrix and then calculate its determinant, right? Well, that's exactly what this formula is also doing. The determinant is non-zero if and only if the wedge product is non-zero. The determinant is simply the signed magnitude of the wedge product, so we get exactly the same answer. Once again, this shows the power of geometric algebra. Not only does it encode geometric objects, like lines and planes, and geometric operations, like rotations and projections, it even encodes geometric relations, like linear independence and subspace membership. You don't have to remember any formulas, you just use a few simple rules over and over and over again. But wait, it gets better. Watch this. Let's say that you want to solve this system of two linear equations in the two unknowns x and y. You would probably write the system of equations using a matrix and vectors. But you can also write it in a kind of funny way by focusing on the columns of the matrix. In this form, the equation is basically asking us to find the coefficients x and y of a linear combination of the two columns that would result in the given vector v. I'm going to name the columns a and b to make things easier. Now we can play a really cool trick. We can actually get rid of the term containing b by just wedging the left and right sides of the equation with b. Remember that the wedge of a vector with itself is 0. So our trick makes this term vanish. This is a really clever way of simplifying the equation by using the wedge product. At this point, all we have to do is divide by the bivector. That way we have x all by itself, and this is the answer. It gives us the correct value for x. We can do something similar for y as well. Maybe you're a little bit suspicious about the division we did. Are we just allowed to divide by a bivector? Yes, we are. Remember that one of the main goals of our new product was to allow inverses. Vectors can always be inverted, and it turns out that blades also always have an inverse, at least if they're not degenerate, that is, if their norm isn't 0. So here we have a very cool example of how useful it can be to just divide by geometric objects. We are basically dividing one plane by another here. It's crazy, but it works. If you're not convinced, you can write everything out in detail, and then distribute both wedge products, apply the rules that we've used many times before, and you will see that you can cancel the unit bivector from the top and the bottom of the fraction. What remains at the end is a good old division between two real numbers. But please look at those numbers a bit more closely. The bottom one is the determinant of the original matrix A. And the top one is also a determinant, where one of the columns of A has been replaced by the vector v from the original equation. Does this look familiar? It's known as Cramer's rule. In traditional linear algebra, the proof of Cramer's rule is a nightmare of bookkeeping to keep track of all the row and column indices. But here it's just a simple trick, where the wedge product isolates one of the unknowns. And then our product allows us to divide by a blade. And that's it. It's so simple and elegant. And it makes it totally obvious where Cramer's rule comes from. See this video for a much more detailed exposition. I love deep connections between different areas of math. They always end up explaining one thing in terms of something else. In this video, we explained determinants in terms of the wedge product. Geometric algebra extends linear algebra and subsumes it. Many familiar things get a new face, a deeper interpretation. The determinant is only one example. Cramer's rule is another. You can prove all of these things without any coordinates, without any specific numbers, without first having to construct any matrices. We can do all of these calculations directly on geometric objects, the vectors and the plane segments and the linear subspaces. That is the power of geometric algebra. Thank you so much for supporting our channel. please like and subscribe and watch exclusive content on Patreon. And whatever you do, always keep learning.